reading the student manuals, because there'll be some additional information there. Because in a presentation in a class, you're going over the high points, right? So like I said, today is marketing a listing, and we've been knee deep in the topic of sellers. Everything about sellers, how to start working with a seller, how to pre-qualify them. All of that we've been doing, and how to do the listing appointment. We even practiced last week those scripts on seller objections, or how to get started with your listing presentation, how to close your listing presentation. So I would highly, highly encourage that you practice those, not just what we did last Thursday, but continue that practice, because you want everything to be conversational. And I know how many people kind of cringe at the word scripts, and you're like, ooh, I'm not, you like them. Who else likes them? You like them? Okay. Okay. Well, okay, Tyler, how do you feel about scripts, learning scripts? Okay. And that's most people, to have this many of you saying it's okay. How about you, Keanu? You okay learning scripts? How do you feel about it?
They give structure.
I like that. They give structure. Here's what I'll tell you. If you do not want to sound new, then learn scripts. If you don't want to be stumped at an appointment with a buyer or seller, learn scripts. What it's going to do is prepare you for conversations. It shouldn't sound manufactured. It shouldn't sound fake. And I think that's what a lot of us think is, oh, I don't want to sound all salesy, right? Well, you don't have to. If you've come to my classes enough and been around me enough, you hear me say scripts every single day. And you'll hear me repeat things, my scripts, all the time, because I've learned what works well for me and what's powerful. So learning scripts is what successful experienced agents have done and do all the time. And matter of fact, I'm going to be transparent. When I started, remember, I came from the corporate world, and I was like, I'm not learning scripts. I don't want to sound like that. I'm not going to do that. Because I'm pretty good on my feet, pretty good at, at winging it. But then it took only one bad experience to cure me of that ego and humble me. I had one of my very first listing appointments. It was a lead. It was not someone I knew or someone referred to me. I went and I did my preparations of a CMA and all of that. But I hadn't practiced any seller objections. I didn't even know what they all could be. Like my first listing appointment, right? Or maybe my second. I think because my first was with someone I knew. So I knew they didn't have objections. They just said, where do I sign? Okay. So they start having objections and asking me these questions, and I'm like, and I walked out of there feeling really dumb. I don't know about you, but I don't like feeling dumb. So it upset me, and then it made me mad at myself. I'm like, I am never doing that again. I'm never putting myself in that position again, because it felt really bad. And I did not get the listing, and I shouldn't have. I didn't know how to answer their objections and their questions professionally and convincingly. I just kind of looked at him with deer in the headlights, like, I don't know. And so I had to learn the hard way. And now it's so funny that over time, how much it changes, because it built my confidence to know what to say. And then I now am all over a good script, a good new script. I hear somebody say something and I'm like, oh, I love the way you just said that. That is awesome. And then I will adopt that right away if I really like it. So I'm always searching out new and better scripts. And so that's what we practiced last week, is you've got to know what to say. And like I said last week, think about it. if you learn the basic objections of a buyer and a seller, then they all have basically the same objections and questions. So once you learn you're pretty well set. Now, there might be an oddball question or objection that happens, but not very often. You're gonna get the same from almost every potential client. So highly recommend. Now, what we're gonna talk about today is marketing a listing. When do you think, so the way we work with buyers and sellers is different. And where we put in most of the work. So for a buyer, we're putting in all the work until we find them the house, right? And with a seller, we're putting in all the work before we ever go live. So most of your heavy lifting, most of what you're going to be doing is before they ever go live in MLS. And the reason I want you to understand that is for way too long, many agents have had a horrible business practice. And that is going to work for a seller, helping them get their house ready to sell, and not having a listing agreement, an exclusive right to sell signed until right before they go live. And guess what can happen? Neighbor says, hey, my son would love to buy your house. Guess who's out in the cold? You are. They don't have to pay you a dime. Or an investor comes by and say, hey, we'll buy it for cash. And you don't even have to clean it or do any work to it. And you have nothing signed. But you've spent money, effort, time, resources. And one of the things that you have to understand is MLS makes it sound like we shouldn't get it signed because of their rules and timelines. Does anybody know what the rules are for a listing, how soon it needs to go in to MLS once the agreement's signed? 24 hours. And you're like, oh, well, then I can't get it signed in advance. No, you then would go into pre-MLS. And people are like, well, I don't want to go into pre-MLS. We don't have a price yet or what have you. Well, that's why you can't take listings in a hasty manner. And actually, you experienced it yesterday, a client wanting to go really fast and you having to slow the process down, but not make them feel like you were dragging your feet,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Thanks to your advice, I was able to get her to.
Yeah. She had a buyer, wanted to write an offer, an investor now. And there's work that needs to be done. Same with a listing. So I want you to already get in your mind before we get into all this material is when you work with sellers, you need to make certain you understand what your professional timeline is. I have a professional timeline that it takes me 10 to 14 days minimum to get your house on the market. And that's assuming your house is ready to go and that you're ready to go, and you're probably not. But I've had people call me and say, they say that I want to list my home, and that's great. When? Tomorrow? Well, they want it to work that way, and some agents jump accordingly. And then they do what I call half-assing. And you only get one first impression when you bring a listing on. One first impression. Trying to recover from that is hard. It makes you look unprofessional. It doesn't make the listing shine because maybe you're putting it up before you have professional pictures. Not a good thing.
There's a house on EB3rd that I feel like is like the textbook example of that that's on right now. Like they had an agent, the photos were terrible, sat, and then now they have a new agent. And it just dropped it yesterday, like 50 grand.
And you'll
Pricing
see
stuff.
sellers' disclosures are not uploaded. They don't have their act together. Because they let the client, most likely, here's the scenario I would assume happens, is they let the client push dictate the timeline. And we as agents, if we're not careful, your client will dictate. Did you feel like she was taking over yesterday?
Yeah, gosh, this is what's happening, going through this, just saying multiple properties, like changing her mind, like mid-text, like, it was wild.
And so you're like, whoa. So you have to understand, and I think it's easy to abdicate when you're new, because you feel like you don't know what you're doing, right? Kind of don't in some ways, and it's okay. That's not a diss on you guys. It's just where you are. But remember, you can slow this train down. And you need to, so that you do the best possible job for them in helping them sell their homes. So that's where I would say to someone, well, we have to come up with a pricing strategy, the marketing strategy, and that includes creating professional marketing materials, professional photographs. And that all takes time because we only have one chance for an amazing first impression. And that usually will slow people down. Like, whoa, let's breathe. We can do this quickly, but let's do it the right way and not the wrong way. Because here's what the sellers don't understand. If we do the halfway, it could financially impact them. Because we're not showing their house in its best light. We're not doing all the things we should do to get in front of the best buyer for them. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's what master the art and science of effective property marketing. It is about creating more interest. Your job as a listing agent is to get as many eyeballs on that listing as possible. And you think, okay, I just go into MLS. Well, here's some of the things you have to consider. You have to consider who's your target buyer? I don't think enough listing agents think about who would buy this house. Is it a move-up house? Is it a first-time buyer house? Is it an investor house? Your marketing strategy should reflect who that target market is. It a luxury buyer? Is it a second home buyer? You've got to be thinking about this. And then, are you with the pricing strategy? Because marketing and pricing go hand in hand, just like condition of the property does. So you want to make certain that you're coming up with the right pricing strategy that your target buyer will see you. And I don't have this in here, but, you know, I need to work it in somewhere about pricing. Let's just talk about pricing because it impacts all of this on marketing a listing. Pricing a listing. If you have a seller, and you all will more than once, have a seller that wants to price their house higher than the pricing strategy you recommend. Remember we talked about, I think last week, about how some listing agents buy a listing. What does that mean? Does anybody remember what that means?
I'll sell it for $450. And I know I'll be able to get you that much. It's more than what that other agent told you, but we're gonna get it.
Or that they'll give them a high price, or they'll say whatever the seller says that is what they want to list it for. They're like, yeah, we can do that. Bait and switch. And there's some big agents that has been their practice for years. And if you look at their days on market for their listings, high. If you look about what their list price to average sales price is, low.
Those are the ones you see where it's like you listed it at $750 and then they dropped
Down, it came down, it came down. Now, I'm not going to tell you or assume or make you promise that you'll never take an overpriced listing, because we all do. We all do. But you've got to weigh your odds and the risks. Is it worth your time, effort, and money to do that? Because you may never have a true opportunity to sell it. Make sense? Yeah. So in the pricing of properties, you've got to make sure, think about how people search online for homes. Anybody go on Zillow? Do you all know, do you know the backstory about Zillow? Do you know why it was created? You need to know. Because Zillow is not your best friend as an agent. Far from it. Zillow was only created, and they did a great job, don't get me wrong. Their website, super user friendly, people love it, consumers love it, they flock to it, they've done amazing advertising. And so they have a huge following. But it was only created for one reason and one reason only. To collect leads to sell to you. And they sell them for a very high price. There are agents that are paying thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars a month to get Zillow leads. I'm not saying Zillow leads are bad. There are some people that that's how they got their business off the ground. But they're exceedingly expensive. And when you're brand new and you don't know how to convert leads and you don't have a system in which you do your follow-up and everything, I will almost guarantee you will waste your money. Even some of our experienced agents, I've seen them waste tens of thousands of dollars because they bought the leads and then they didn't follow up and they didn't, they wasted the money. They go, oh, I've got 2,000 leads. That's usually what they tell me. They usually stop after getting 2,000 leads and no business, but out a lot out of their pocket. I'm like, what are you gonna do with those leads? Oh, well, they've probably already bought. How do you know that? I mean, it's just, so, but when people shop online in these sites, Zillow, Realtor.com, any of those, even our own, they're gonna put in a price range. They don't look for every single listing in MLS, right? They're not gonna look at $1 million house. Well, they might for grins, but it's not their search. Does that make sense?
We're just, his, whatever he's doing on his laptop is on his screen.
Yeah, Madison came in to do something. I'm not sure what.
Getting make sure that he knew, he was like casting his laptop.
Yeah, don't look.
Seems okay. This is stuff in.
Trying to think what we have at 11. Oh, we have an online class that we're gonna show at 11. He's probably just getting it ready. So, so they only look in a price range. And so if your seller is not willing to price their home in the price range that the target buyer would be in, then the target buyer, the real buyer, is never gonna see that property. Because the seller thinks, oh, they'll come across it somehow. No. Buyer's agents don't look that way either. We stay in the price range of what our clients say they want to buy. Does that make sense? And then the other thing, please do not get creative with your pricing. I know that's a strong word. My mother is probably cringing because she didn't like, but it is to emphasize how strongly I feel about it. I hate creative pricing. That $199, $998 price, no buyer puts in those numbers for a search. Actually, they might start at 200 and you might have missed 300 to 400 buyers because their search started at 200 and you got creative. You've got to think our pricing is not like, I know most of us have been brainwashed with retail that $9.99 sounds better than $10, right? Walmart's famous for it, right? That doesn't work in our world. It does not work in our world. You have to think about how people search, and on some of those search sites, it's actually already pre-populated. You don't get to put in any numbers. They already have a range that you choose from. And none of them are, yeah, so don't do that. 197, 203. What is that about? The only time you'll see creative numbers like that is new construction. And that's because they're literally pricing it out. And then, so if you see odd numbers on construction, new construction, that can be normal in that world, but not for resale. Don't get all creative. Don't let your client get creative, because you need to tell them we could be missing out on a buyer because they don't search that way. Does that make sense? Because I see it all the time and I'd be like, why'd you pick this price? What is this? This. They're like, what? I thought that sounded good. No, it doesn't. Okay. Oops. Why marketing works and benefits all stakeholders. For sellers, professional marketing validates their investment, and helps achieve their financial goals. And the quality of the presentations create, what you're trying to do is, remember, attract that potential buyer. And you have to try to get an emotional connection. People buy houses on emotion. Has a lot to do with first impressions. How many of you have shown buyers houses? Yeah. And you're going to start experiencing when they connect with a house and when they don't. And literally it's first impressions. Yes, they're worried about, yes, they want to know how many bedrooms, how many baths, some of the practical things, but it is that feeling that they get in and that first impression they have that connects them to that house. And so your marketing for that listing should be targeting, how do we get people to pay attention to us? For the buyers, quality materials provide really good information. I will tell you, I want to make it so easy for the buyer and the buyer's agent to make an offer on my listing. I want to have as much information in that listing as possible. I want to have everything uploaded into MLS, into the supplements, so that when they make an offer, it's going to be easy peasy. I don't want them searching for those sellers' disclosures. I don't want them wondering where to send the earnest. I don't want them wondering if I have a TC or not, a transaction coordinator doing my paperwork. I'm gonna spell that all out. I'm gonna have an offer sheet in there. It's gonna give them all the information, where my office is located, if I have an assistant, whatever, my title company I use, all of that. Because I'm going to make it super, super easy. And that's part of the marketing of this property. Also, it makes you look so professional. That's another way not to look new. It's one of the things I did as a new agent is I would just do more than the average agent, and people they had no idea I was new. And they'd be like, wow. So you get to that level and you won't look new, and you could do it tomorrow. I want to encourage you all that, although there are a lot of agents out there. Have you heard how many there are in Kansas City? Anybody know? 12 to 13,000. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? You're like, oh God. Well, here's the thing. Hi, Serena. Here's the thing. 20% of them are doing 80% of the business. Most agents are part-time or hobbyists. They're not doing this full-time. And most of them, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just going to be real with you. Most of them don't have a high level of professionalism, because most of them don't have this level of training at all. They don't learn how to do any of this. And so they're trying their best, but you can differentiate yourself from the average agent so easily. By just doing these extra things, you can shine. And where that's so important, it's always important throughout your career, but when you're new, it'll also help you not look brand spanking new. Make sense? So for agents, the better you market and make it easy for them, like I said, the better the experience for them. And then they're gonna think, oh my gosh, Ashley, the listing agent, she's got her act together. This should be an easy deal. Look at how beautiful her listing is. She's got all the paperwork. She made this so easy for us to write an offer. Yeah, this is gonna be sweet, right? So you gotta have that, build that perception. So developing a marketing plan, preparation is key. You have to understand, what are the unique selling features of this home? One of the things I have in my pre-listing, remember we did the pre-qualification and the pre-listing information I send out to the seller in advance when we talked about what does it look like? You pre-qualify, you send over the pre-listing information, you go on the preview appointment, and then you go on the actual listing appointment. Well, in that pre-listing homework and information I send to them, I'm actually asking a seller, tell me all the work you've done to this home. Any remodeling, updates, whatever, any repairs. Let me know, I need to know all these things. And then, what is it that you love about this home? What made you buy this home? Why do you think I asked that?
A good selling point.
Yeah, what they loved in that home, most likely another buyer's gonna love in that home. And it also makes my marketing easier. Seriously. It makes my marketing easier, and my marketing will match their expectations. So here's something that you have to be aware of. Is if you're not asking your seller enough about their house and what drew them to it and all of that, and then you create the marketing materials, and this happened to me. I share all my failures with you. I go into this one, to my seller, I show her all my, marketing materials, she goes, she didn't like any of it. What, you're calling my house cute? Cute is like,
It's all house.
I have an expensive home. Should have been charming. But, so, and then when you write those remarks that go into MLS, you need to run those by them before you put it in, or they're gonna say, well, you forgot this, or you did, blah, 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 and you'll be like, ugh. So your marketing also has to match their expectations. And you might have to say some things like they'll say, oh, you didn't say it was close to the Catholic school right here that you could walk there. Well, I can't. For fair housing reasons, I can't. But you've got to know, am I matching their expectations? Because they'll come back and pick at you. And so that's not fun. Know your audience, like we talked about, who could be your target buyers. And it may be more than one group that you're targeting. Do you know a first-time home buyer house could also be an empty nester house? Think about it. And actually, that's what has been so difficult for first-time home buyers, is that empty nesters or retirees of wanting to downsize. And a cute little ranch in Old Overland Park fits their needs. And a first-time home buyer, that's in their price point, right? So you gotta think about those things, and then set those clear expectations with your sellers up front. Talk about the timelines, like I said, slow that train down if your seller is in a huge hurry. Do not get on that train with them. Unless there is truly an urgent reason that they have to put that house on the market, like a court order. Or they're trying to beat foreclosure procedure. I mean, so those are some real things that could happen. Somebody could say, I'm in pre-foreclosure. I gotta sell my house. And then you've got to race to beat the foreclosure process. Because if you don't beat it, then the house gets sold. But not by you. So you gotta know those things. And then your visually pleasing content that you're going to create. How many of you are artistic and creative and have done marketing before? Okay. but not all of us are. Serena's like, nope. Well, guess what? Did you know, Jody, you're now the vice president of marketing of your company? Well, you are. You're also the CFO, the CEO, the COO. You're the gopher, you're the admin, you're the director of sales. So if that's not something that you're good at or have experience in, you got to be thinking about that right now. What am I going to do? What programs can I use? If you have the financial wherewithal to hire Parker, great. But not very many of us getting into this industry as new agents have a marketing budget set aside to make those investments. So it's usually up to us to do that. So you've got to figure out. Last night, Jocelyn and Megan were showing you different ways to do marketing. Jocelyn was focusing on Canva and what it can do and how you can do it. And then Megan was showing you in Command Designs how to do it. You've got to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, because just because you don't have the experience, you still have to have professional looking materials. Right? So that's where you got to think about, oh, I'm not so good at that, so I probably have to go with the easiest program out there. And find it and start practicing now. Find out what that is now. Don't wait until you have a listing appointment and you don't have your stuff together. And then you put together a flyer that looks like fifth grader could have done better. That's not going to sell you. Make sense? So just know you now have some roles or hats that you're wearing that you don't have experience in. And none of us very, very few of us come into real estate being able to do all the different roles perfectly or have even experience in them. So it's okay, but you got to figure out, what am I going to do if that's not my strong suit? How am I going to still be able to look really professional? Building your marketing toolkit. What can you afford as a new agent right now? What can you come out of pocket as a new agent for listings? Because listings can cost money. When I was an agent, I knew exactly how much I was spending on every listing. On average, I spent $500 on every listing. That was my investment in that. But I had come up with that money up front. I couldn't wait until after it closed. So when I was brand new, I wasn't spending $500 on every listing. Here's what you have to be able to do. The one thing I think you have to be able to afford: professional photography. What did I tell you about first impressions? And where does the first impression happen? Where does it happen? Where's a buyer or buyer's agent see your listing first? Online. Does anybody say really bad listing photos? I think it should be a crime. I think they should be fined. And matter of fact, here, I'm just going to give you fair warning. There's a couple of things that Kristen gets a little wound up about and that you will hear about. And if I see you put a listing on and you've got really bad photos, we're going to have a little talk. Because that's the bare minimum you owe your sellers. It is. And you can do it fairly affordably. But you got to make sure you got to pay for that. If I see, oh, yeah, I can tell a cell phone photo. Now, cell phone photos can be pretty good, but it's not like professional photography. It is not. You want it because guess what? You've got to draw a buyer to your listing. And if they can't tell a bedroom from a living room because the picture's so dark, and especially if it's a vacant house, then how is that very appealing? Is it? There, you will have buyers who will say, I don't want to see that house. And you might know that house or know that neighborhood and know it's actually we should go see it. But the pictures are so bad, you're gonna have to really sell the buyer to get them there. That should never be the case. Ever be the case. So that's where, whatever you need to do, graphic design, resources. Are you gonna do virtual tours? Serena?
So lenders also have resources that you can connect with. They have List Report that provides a lot of marketing tools. So in getting this, what I connected with the lender, became a partner with them. Had them show up at the open houses, have them bring something. You guys don't have to provide all that stuff.
Perfect.
Alex. And so I met him. with
Our home,
Airbnb.
one of our service providers here, who's a home inspector.
All of our open houses. In
Hmm.
fact, that's how I found out he was bilingual. Because we had somebody show up for the open house and they only spoke Spanish and then he was like starting to talk to him like he was a native. I was like,
That's so cool.
I called talking Spanish. Like a native.
Fluently. Yeah.
But if there's something, especially at your listing, like if they have tall trees, bring an arborist. Like, don't just be passive, be very active in your listings and point out things that could help with the buyers.
Definitely. And that's where in the marketing, you're gonna do a personalized website, a landing page for that. Before, you guys are so lucky with all of the technology tools that you have. I had to create. So here are the things I did for my listings. Professional photos, staging, 2 hours. I paid for 2 hours of staging that cost me $90. Those two things were the absolute best return on my dollar for every single one of my listings. Because when I had them staged, one, my seller listened to the stager better than they listened to me. And I got to continue to be the cheerleader for the house. Because when you start picking on someone's house, or that's how they feel, and you're trying to be judicious, and I think I'm pretty judicious, but I'd say, we need to declutter, and you need to take down some of this personalization. I literally had a seller say to me, Kristen, I don't think you can sell my house because I don't think you like it enough. I'm like, yes, I do. She goes, but you haven't said anything positive about my house. Kicked me in the gut. And I learned for me, now some agents can give the staging advice and do it beautifully. I thought I was doing it well. Obviously I wasn't. But when I brought in a professional, they listened to her and did almost everything she told them to do, and they never did everything I wanted them to do. So I got to be the cheerleader of the house. I never had to say anything. Now, I would tell her what I wanted her to focus on with them. If I knew some things about the neighborhood and what we really needed to do versus what would be nice to do, but we don't have to do. She and I would have that convo before she ever went to that house, and then she would do her magic. It was amazing. I also would create a single site website. So I would literally go on GoDaddy. And I would create a website for every single one of my listings. And then I would buy a URL through GoDaddy of their address. So 123mainstreet.com would be the writer on the top of my sign that would take them to the landing page, that's what you would use now, but to my single site website. Yeah, so I did a lot. And so just those things that I said to you, those cost me about $500 to do all of that.
And that's what List Report does for free.
Yeah.
And they're crazy.
And you can create those landing pages on command too. Those listing landing pages. So just know you've got a lot of resources, but Serena's right. Lenders buy marketing platforms just like we use. So if you can tag on to them and take advantage of that before you can afford to do extra stuff yourself, or in addition to the extra stuff you do. Yep. So, so you've got to have yard signs. Okay, yard signs. There is no need for you to go buy and have done a personalized yard sign until you start making money. Do not do that. I never did personalized yard signs. It's not a good or a bad. I just chose to spend my marketing dollars differently because I didn't see that it made a difference. And here's my other thing, and
So
just,
then what would be the other option?
we have office
Okay,
yard signs for sale here.
okay, so just get the ones for sale here.
Yep. I mean, again, it's a business decision for you. And then my other thing is, and it's a pet peeve of mine, and you can take it with a grain of salt. You shouldn't have your picture on there, especially if you're a woman. It is not safe. It is not safe. And then we as women, how often do we change our hair? And I can point to signs in this community that those women have never changed their picture in like 15 or 20 years, and they don't look like that. They do not look like their son. I know I have a really good agent friend that she didn't change her hairdo for 20 years because it was on, her picture was on all of her marketing material. She's like, I just can't do that.
Like, you don't want to do that.
I actually got to where I get putting your picture on a website, so people can see you and what have you. But for my business card and for my marketing material, I also had a logo. Because a logo is more of evergreen, meaning it's less likely to look old or get aged like we do. Make sense? So whether you choose to put your picture on the sign, I don't recommend it. I don't think it's safe. You as a woman will get phone calls off of your yard signs and people wanting to see your listing. And they may not be people with intent to buy. So that's my little safety. You've got to figure out, I would do direct mail to the neighborhood. So I'd spend money on mailings to the neighborhood when I had a listing. So that's additional cost that I had. Now, again, I built up to that. That's not what I wasn't doing that whole package when I was brand new. Make sense? So you got to figure out, and then you've got to figure out what's my budget? What do I want to do? I would actually do this. I would have my starter budget. Then when I start making some money budget, and then when I'm really doing well, this is where I want to go. So kind of your own personal silver, gold, platinum marketing plan that you want to grow to. Online marketing techniques. Hey, online, you guys are so lucky. You have social media. Now this makes me sound like a dinosaur, and I'm not, but I am. And have that. All of my marketing, almost all of it cost money. Direct mail. I did 1,000 pieces of mail a month. Did you know that's kind of expensive? Even more so now. I also, if I wanted to do any advertising, I had to do it print and I had to do it in newspaper, magazine, that type of thing. That's expensive. Actually, you all spend so much, I wish I knew the statistics, but you all spend so much less on marketing dollar-wise than we did 15, 20 years ago in the portion of our business expenses. We spent buckets of money to advertise and to market, and you're so lucky. So you've got to make sure. How many of you are really good on at social media? Okay, and don't be shy. I mean, if you feel comfortable, if you feel like you're comfortable on social media and you're on there on a regular basis, yeah. Keanu is starting to get traction. He has a YouTube channel for his vintage watches. And he's starting to get traction. He even told me that somebody at the gym that he didn't even know came up to him and talking about his YouTube channel. Which kind of feels weird and cool at the same time, doesn't it? Yeah. And then he was saying, I need to do that for real estate. If I'm getting, he's got about 1,000 followers. If I'm getting, people coming up to me, talk to me about that.
You do a really nice job.
Yeah, he
Yeah, I
does.
showed a video of it to my husband the other day. I was like, this kid's gonna be so happy.
Yeah, he does a great job. So now, again, remember, you're the vice president of marketing. So you gotta figure out, nobody else is gonna promote or market your business the way you have to. You can have family and friends that'll be your cheerleaders, that's great. But no, you are the one who have to push your business out there. And again, I want you to figure out if social media isn't your natural habitat, you've got to figure out, am I going to use it at all? Because while I will tell you, it can definitely enhance your marketing capabilities in this business. I know agents who do very little and they're all about relationships and networking. So it's not that you have to. It is kind of expected though of sellers. So again, think of what a seller is going to have an expectation. And if you go into a listing presentation and your marketing doesn't have any social media, what do you think they're gonna kind of look at you like? Oh. Well, what does the seller want? They want maximum exposure. And that is your job. That is your job. Get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. And some agents just let MLS do that. Because MLS feeds to Zillow and all the other big sites, right? You know that? That's how they get that information, that IDX feed. So you've got to be able to have engaging descriptions and what have you. Do any of you use AI? Okay, I do. I do. This presentation program I use now, oh my God, it's changing my life. It does the student manuals, it does the presentations, it does these graphics. All I do is upload the content. And then it does this magic, and then I can go in and edit and reformat and what have you. But it does all the heavy lifting, and I'm really pleased with how it looks. So if this again is not your natural habitat, or even if it is, find the tools that are going to make you efficient. Because this is rocking my world, even though it's still a lot of work building and designing curriculum. This is, oh, if I hadn't found this program, you'd be looking some dumb, well, I did a couple of classes last month or the month before that were just like a Google PowerPoint, right? Google Slides. And the template looked like 5th grade. And I was like, oh, I didn't like it. Didn't look that professional. So you've got to be thinking about, how do I measure success in this? So you need to learn that according to recent studies, 90% of home buyers start their search online. So digital marketing is crucial. You got to have consistent branding. And you have to have an engagement strategy. Posting once is not enough. You guys get that? I hear agents go, I say on social media, yeah, I post once a week. Okay. Okay. Handful of people saw you. Because not everybody's gonna see everything you post. People don't go through their whole timeline every day. Well, maybe some do. They don't have anything else to do. Yeah, but not very many. And they must not be following very many people. Because if I tried to do that, I follow a lot of people, especially on Instagram. There's just no way. There's just no way. So you got to be thinking about that.
Yeah, the only person responding to your post is Aunt Susie. You need to push it out.
Yeah, or mom, or mom. So let's talk about the documents we need for listing this house and marketing. And we've already talked about some of these, but you need to know agency disclosure brochure. When does a buyer seller need to sign? When do you need to give that to them? It's yes, as soon as possible. The minute they start talking to you as if you were their agent, you need to disclose the roles of agency. And when I was a new agent, that was the hardest, most confusing thing for me to explain, because I didn't understand it. Anybody else see that boat? Yeah. It took me a while to like, what? You're a designated agent, buyer or seller. 80% of the time, that's will be your role. And then you may be a transaction broker on occasion. But that's pretty rare, because to be a transaction broker in the most common scenario is when a buyer is your buyer under buyer's agency. The listing is your listing under a listing agreement. It's not like you just met this buyer, okay? Off of a yard sign, an open house, or a sign call for that listing, that's an unrepresented buyer, and they stay that way. You cannot convert them for your listing because you've already said to your seller, I'm your designated, I'm your exclusive agent. Make sense? So if you get in that scenario where you have a buyer and seller, and the buyer actually is interested in your listing, then rush to Linda or your coach or myself, and let's walk through that before you go any further.
Good question.
Uh-huh.
When you get two buyers registering the same property. how
It
do you-
happens.
That's-
Okay, you have to give one of them away if they both want to write an offer. There is no way. I don't care how good you are and how fair and how, yeah. Because one of them will feel like you favored the other and you'll get sued, you get your tushy sued.
Not only that, the listing agent will be looking at you like,
Yeah,
you can't do that.
yeah, and they'll be saying to their
They should be
seller,
calling you out on it.
and the seller, and they should be saying to the seller, I don't think we should accept either one of these offers, because I don't know what's going on. This isn't what should be going on. Right, because you know too much about the two of them. Because you've been working, so you can't fairly represent both parties objectively. So, yeah, but no, that's a great question. Because it's gonna happen. Doesn't happen very often, but it happens. So exclusive right to sell, seller's disclosure, lead-based paint, if applicable. You need the seller's estimated proceed sheet. When you go to that listing appointment, you've got to have that. You got to talk money with them. And you should have gotten from them, because you sent them their homework, you should get, how much do they owe on their house? Do they have any liens on their house? Is there anything you need to know that'll affect the money? You need a CMA, affiliated business disclosure. That is an internal document for the office. That is not something that goes with your offer. You know how I can tell somebody's new right away? You get their offer and they have sent me the buyer's estimated expense worksheet and their office's affiliated business disclosure. And I'll be like, oh, honey, honey, you didn't know you weren't supposed to spend that. So Linda looks at every single document that's going out with your offer or that's being signed by a client, Linda is looking at. If not, we can't protect you. There are such legal liabilities. You should be a little bit scared of those contracts. And I'm okay with you being a little scared. Makes me feel a little better than if you're cavalier. Like, oh, yeah, this looks good. Nobody needs to look at it. I'm in a hurry. Well, that hurry might cause you a lawsuit. That's not fun. MLS input sheet, that's something you can get on MLS. I used it. It's not something you have to use, but what it is, it's, when I would do my preview, I'd print out the sheet because it's going to have, spaces to, record everything that has to go into MLS. And then some extra information. So when I'm doing a preview walking through a house, then I am putting in, does this have a ceiling fan and a light? Because you're gonna get back to the office and you're not gonna remember that while you're putting all of this together. And I wanna know those things. I'm also taking pictures around the house while I'm doing that. Strategic price adjustment form. When I go on a listing appointment, I always have a form that says, if we don't sell this house, if we don't go under contract in X amount of days, then we're gonna do a price adjustment. And it's one of my power tools, and how it looks right now, it says a 30, 60, 90-day price adjustments. And we're actually already going to come to agreement on what that will look like. Because can I tell you, one of the hardest conversations you'll ever have with a seller is, looks like we have to reduce the price. And if you don't have that already mapped out, they're going like, no, we don't have to reduce the price. You'll be like, no, yeah, we do. We've been on the market now 30 days or more. And everybody who came on the market at the same time as us has either had a price reduction or they're under contract. We're not in a winning position. We're actually losing compared to the other marketing, property brochures. Are you gonna have flyers, brochures? What are you gonna have at the property? A listing home book. I used to have a sample, a real life sample. I have to put one together. Somebody borrowed it. Okay, here's my problem. Somebody will say, can I borrow this and make a copy of it? I'm like, yeah. And then a week or two goes by and I totally forget who I loaned it to, and now it's my listing home book is at somebody's house or went to the trash. Never made it way back to me. But it's basically, again, remember how I said I try to make it as easy as possible for the buyer or buyer's agent to make an offer on this house. So in my listing book, and we'll get to it in a minute, about what's in there, just for that purpose. And then I have a secret purpose for it too. You need yard sign name writers. Have you all ordered name writers? Okay, I see. No, okay. You know, those name writers that go on the top or the bottom of the sign, it has your name and your phone number. You can get those from Marion Signs. Oh, yeah, they're $14. You all need those right now. And then you probably need an open Sunday, open Saturday writers too. We sell some of the generic ones here. But the personalized ones you need to get yourself. And then as you get more listings, you're gonna want one for every listing, because here's what happens at that front desk. Somebody calls on a listing, has our sign in, but no name. And then Madison has to try to find out whose listing it is, and usually they did not write down the address. They're like, oh, it's maybe on McGee. And sometimes we can find it, she can find it quickly. You don't want that. You want them calling you directly, not the office. Now, if she can find it, then she's gonna call you and give you, that lead comes right back to you. It's not gonna go get sent to anybody else. Lockbox, you gotta rent a lockbox. They're $20 a year to rent them. And you rent those from KCRAR.
I was thinking that, I was very like jump happy, and I have two that I have not used yet, that have been sitting there, and it's like not that they're expensive, but it was really funny, I was just like, I need to get these now. And like, you don't wanna need one when you like, and not have one when you need it, but like, they're easy to go get, like, you don't have to rush, and I just do the thing out on my calendar.
So you're over prepared. And that's okay. Pointer signs. Do you have pointer signs? If you're doing open houses right now, you should be buying pointer signs. We have ones here. Don't get personalized ones. You will go through so many pointer signs. It's not even funny. Don't spend a lot of money on them. You can also get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. But you need them. You need a collection of them. These are things you need.
I would look at discount places. I just picked them up at a club in Branson.
Yeah, you're great at finding the deals.
Comfort dollar piece here, $3. Bottom out. Dollar piece? Like, you're not finding those anywhere.
come back to
I
me.
get a lot of my marketing stuff from good stores, pawn shops, all those places.
Hold on, let me see if this is.
Stuff like that, integrated mine.
Yeah, you can, and it's okay, because you're gonna go through so many of those. Okay, I just want to make sure I got through all of. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know where. Okay, let's talk about the menu of services. This is you talking about your marketing and your compensation. So I think enough agents do this. I did this. I used a menu of services. And what that means is I had the 3 tiers of compensation levels that a seller could pay me depending on the marketing package that they chose. And you know why I did that? Why do you think I used that as a tool? Does anybody love the thought of asking someone to pay them for their services? I hated that. I was just like, oh, this feels so bad. Now we have to talk, you gotta pay me. Here's all the great things I do, and now we gotta talk the money. I found it highly uncomfortable, I'll be honest.
This way it only seems like you're shopping.
They get a choice, and it made me think of, why don't we give sellers a choice instead of saying, here's what I charge? And some of them then will push back on you, Ellie, and say, well, but another agent said that they'll take less. Yeah, but do they have these different services? It also ensured, so one, it made it easier for me to say, you get to choose. Also, I realized, here's what can happen. You can get a seller, you know what you offer every time for a listing. And then a seller reads something, or some neighbor tells them, or family member says, your agent should also be doing this and that. They should be doing Facebook ads. And before you know it, they're wanting you to spend additional money that you didn't budget. But if you have different tiers and you say, you know what, if that's what you want, that's my goal. It's my goal plan. Whatever you want to call them. It was my silver, gold, and platinum. So one, it gave them a choice, and I think it made them feel more in control. Two, it kept them from getting crazy on me. Because again, like I said in the beginning, your clients will try to take control and tell you what to do. Especially if they smell that you're new. Some. Okay, so. I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna stop the share and I'm gonna show you, because it's in the student manual. But I'm gonna show you what a sample menu of service can look like. I'm having some issues. It's not, there we go, there we go. So here it is. Let me go to Zoom and share again. What questions do you guys have so far? Is this making sense? Does it have you thinking about what you're gonna do and what you're gonna offer? Come on, that's not what I wanted to share. Why did you do that? Oh, okay, it did. Oh, stop. Okay, sorry. It's messing with me because of the delay and the connection. Okay. Okay, it's menu of services. Now, here's where it may be a little tricky for you when you're new, because some of these things cost money. So you've got to be creative and think about what would you offer. So let me see if I can get this bigger. Yes, I can, but let's see if I can do it. So that you can see it. Okay, so my silver level, professional listing photography, 2 open houses, detailed marketing strategy and CMA, home features book, home staging tips, not hiring a stager. VIP contractor vendor list, so I would share with them my contractor vendor list. And social media advertising. The goal is all of the above, and then 4 open houses, a broker agent tour, 2 hours of professional staging or virtual staging, 2 rooms. Why do you think I'm being so specific?
I think it's very clearly rolled out.
Yeah, they won't say, aren't you gonna do virtual staging on all of the rooms? Well, no, really, we just need to do some primary rooms. You don't have to do every room. But I'm gonna make it clear, because again, they're gonna want more than you offer if you're not super specific. Staging, 2 rooms. Home warranty, change of address, DMV records and utilities, meaning giving them the instructions on how to do, like in a package. That they can, it can be very easy. The platinum is all of the above. Drone listing video, 6 open houses, landscaping touch-up, and I would probably, what's missing in there, I'd say like 2 hours of. Yeah, our landscaper here knows. Deep home cleaning and window cleaning, something you would pay for, okay? Free listing home inspection, that would come out of your pocket. So again, when you're new, you might be thinking, I can't do all of that. So think about what could you do? What I would do is that I would really focus on enhanced media, social media strategies. Just be big on that, because I know I can do that very inexpensively.
Or again, vendor partners, a lot of better companies will leave windows.
Yeah, and that's what's on the silver package is you're gonna give them your vendor list.
But if you had that also with that presentation, some of your vendors,
Mhm.
sales stuff, saying, because sometimes their package,
Mm,
especially photography and stuff,
mhm.
giving you an image of, okay, this is actually what you're getting.
Yeah,
It's gonna add to the presentation.
what do you guys think of this?
So like, what if they pay the platinum one and then it sells after 1 open house? And you're like, well, you didn't do 5 other ones. So
Say, our goal was to sell your house quickly, wasn't it?
that's maybe that bad.
And you also, that is, no, that's a good observation though, Keanu, because you do need to be saying to a seller in that listing presentation is, we could sell your house in a day. And it will be because of all the things I bring to the table. And here's why I have such a robust marketing packages, is because I don't know what one thing is going to do it. So if we really, and it's up to them. Because and that's why you kind of have to balance it on, how can I show true value in having them, and then you need to decide what it is you would charge.
Cause you're gonna have a clever seller and they're gonna be like, well, you just said my house should sell in 4 days because that's how many days on market. On average, all the houses are selling for. So why am I gonna pay all that when it's probably gonna sell within 4 days?
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll be like, so you've got to know, but that is our goal, to sell quickly. But I don't have a crystal ball. I do know that if we do all of these things, we will definitely, our likelihood or our likelihood of selling is very high. If I only do one of these things, I don't know if that's gonna be the thing that works. Cause I can't guarantee it. Hold on, let me reshare. Hold on, Zoomers, and I'll reshare the PowerPoint. It's not going very fast. Okay. No, Zoomers, how you guys doing? Brooke, Connor, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Home book. I told you about my home book. My home book made me look so professional because most agents don't do this. Also, when I was an agent, they charged me for my office charged me for colored copies. So I was also cheap. And so I didn't want to have to, and also I learned, one, I didn't want to spend all the money on color copies. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't have some flyers in the house, I would, but do you know what you don't want? Ellie, you don't want the call at 7:30 on a Saturday night or a Friday night, and your seller saying, we ran out of flyers. You have to come over because tomorrow it's gonna be busy. And you're at dinner, you're like, no. There's a home book in there, you have something in there at all times that has all the information relevant to that house. So I'm gonna have the MLS sheet, the client view, not the agent view. Is a difference? Yeah, there is. Just know, because I see it all the time, I see experienced agents and I'll be at like an agent tour and I'll be like, you might wanna change this as the agent view, you just told every agent when this listing expires.
And then they can just reach out directly to the agent, it's like.
So and it's got proprietary information that we're not supposed to be sharing with the general public. So when you go to print, you'll have options and you always want to do client customer view. And there's some different formats. So I collect property details, so I'm gonna have the seller's disclosure in there, and I love me those plastic page covers, love them. I think I kept, Office Depot, in business, buying my binders and my plastic sheets to put everything in. I would do, seller's disclosure, lead-based paint. I would have a list of everything that they upgrade. If I had warranties or, repair, receipts, they would go in there. I would have neighborhood information, like from programs like List Report or RPR. So that a buyer could see information about that neighborhood. So I try to put everything I could think of in that home book. And then it looks professional. And it's collecting those key documents. And it helps build confidence with the buyer and the buyer's agent on making an offer in this house. Because they're like, oh gosh, look at all this information. We don't have to dig for this. We don't have to ask for this. They're telling us everything. And also, here was my secret. Guess who got that home book when the house closed? Guess who got that home book? Who did I give that? Why did I give it to the buyer? Why else did I give it to the buyer?
That's all marketing.
Has all my marketing on it.
Oh,
And it's a keepsake, because people wanna keep that warranty, wanna keep those receipts and everything, right? And since I know a lot of agents go out of business in this business, there's a high likelihood that when they go to sell that house, that their agent doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, if you guys are not keeping both your buyers and sellers information always. Like, I was just a listing agent and I sent brownies to the buyers.
Now, be careful, because those buyer's agents sometimes get bent out of shape, so here's what I would do. I never, ever, put a buyer of one of my listings who was someone, their agent was someone I know or someone in my office. But otherwise, I also usually put them on my newsletter, just my email newsletter. But they always got my home book. And it was branded all with me. But it's a resource, right? Does that make sense? Okay. What are your takeaways and insights? Tell me what'd you learn today? Zoomers, you're gonna have to share too. But we'll do in person first. What'd you guys learn? Keanu, what'd you learn?
I always kind of I guess you reinforce this every time with about showing value to
Mm-hmm.
customers. Do that many different ways, so. Like you show us the different packages, and that's like a really easy way to explain to them what value you bring.
Differentiates you and gives them a choice. Jody, what'd you learn? Yeah.
Not only did I send them to the buyers, but I sent them to the lender, the other.
Oh, lovely.
It took over a week to get the appraisal back. So
Wow.
everybody was waiting on the appraisal, so the appraiser didn't get back.
So I always send a thank you note to the co-op agent. Unless they were nasty and mean and they don't get a thank you. Whitney, what about you?
I really like the whole of just giving into them and like also being able to just market yourself as well. I think that's really cool. There's just a lot of factors that apply to both sides, buying and selling, to just sometimes more. And it was just, I don't know, I love it. It took a lot of like, my mind isn't really right now.
Good. Tyler, what about you?
Keep staying away and
Find a system of it. Yeah, so that's a good takeaway. Ellie?
I like that you showed us what to provide for marketing and taking advantage of the online aspect.
Yeah.
And then also the menu service, so they're not expecting so much more money out of pocket.
Because you gotta be careful, they'll want more.
I love the
Ashley.
menu of services. I think that's gonna be so helpful with negotiating just ahead of time what clients can expect.
Hey,
And I did have a question on that.
Yes.
And I know it's gonna be different for each agent and how long you've been
Mhm.
around and all kinds of factors. But, for like the tiers,
Mhm.
do you feel like it's better to do like set pricing or percentages? Or it really is gonna be dependent on the transaction?
the way we as agents talk, we talk in percentages.
Huh?
But the only time we talk in flat fees are usually houses like 50,000 or less. Because you,
Your return. is-
yeah, the percentage is gonna make you $2.
Yeah.
So there's usually on the really low cost houses, a set amount
Uh-huh.
for commission instead of percentage. So it's not that you couldn't, it's just we don't very often.
Yeah. Okay.
But you could, if somebody said, well, I want you to do a little extra, I don't wanna go to the gold, but would you do that one thing, then you could add like a flat
Sure,
fee
like
to it or something like that.
Yeah.
So think about
Or
that.
not a full percentage.
Yeah.
Great, why don't we
Yeah,
do 3
yeah.
whatever. Okay.
It'll be a business decision. Connor, what was your takeaway?
I had a bunch of
Oh,
takeaways,
wait,
but
Connor, I can't hear you and I'm not sure why. Connor, wait. Should be able to hear you though. What's the system
can you hear
doing?
me now?
Okay, Connor, try again.
Okay,
There we go.
test.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what everybody said, just having a plan of how to market the property. And I like giving the different options to the client of how far they want to market, kind of based on your compensation.
Mhm.
And then also you don't have to do all of that marketing right away as an agent. As your career and your company grows, you can do the more extensive
Exactly.
marketing.
You probably can't afford the Cadillac version right away and it's okay. But just keep in mind where you want to go with this. Thank you, Connor. Brooke, what about you? What's your takeaway? How about you, Skylar? They might not be available to talk. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. If you want to stay, or go down the Facebook page, we are doing a really cool class about, can you see the title of it on there? What's the title of our class, Madison?
I can't remember.